So in terms of introduction with results positive, we specialize in helping organizations with their business technology needs and solutions. We do this providing right-sized services as well as solutions to our organizations that we serve. We've been helping customers with their business technology needs over the last 14 years. And some of the core areas that we specialize in around technology business management, which starts with the strategic IT governance, also with IT strategy, project portfolio management, app portfolio management as well. We also assist organizations in their IT service management operational needs, as well as we assist organizations with their test planning and automated functional and performance testing. And then we do that by partnering with service providers such as ServiceNow. And ServiceNow is our strategic partner from an overall software and technology perspective. And how we deliver our overall business technology solutions is through our service offerings, from advisory and assessment services to implementation, app development, and managed services. So we look forward to your participation today and kind of give you an idea of how you can use the ServiceNow technology for application portfolio management. Also, I wanted to kind of highlight a few of the solutions that we built. So we have a portfolio program and project portals. This is a great way to share the information with external stakeholders, whether it be with executives or whether it be with external contract workers that are working on projects. It's also a way to eliminate the need for, say, a project shared in SharePoint. So very interactive, very popular with our customers today. Something that if you're interested in, feel free to follow up. We also have just launched our foundational release of Oracle E-Business Suite for deployment automation. So this is using the ServiceNow orchestration capabilities to automate the deployment of code. Next, we have our application portfolio management Workbench, a way to streamline the ability to manage the different components of managing your application portfolio, from business processes and capabilities to associated applications and technologies, and be able to edit and maintain those in one view. We have multiple integrations with Jira to help those organizations that are managing hybrid projects and have a previous investment in Jira. The last thing just to highlight here briefly is our project portals. As mentioned, we have our program and portfolio level portals, as well as our project site portals. So these really help provide that visibility out to executives and other stakeholders, where you can share that project information that you're managing on the system, also share it with external stakeholders, and then at the actual project portal site, a way to facilitate collaboration, whether it be through chatting or through having the team have a forum by which they can submit and report any issues, as well as being able to expose and share project status, as well as associated project deliverables such as documents. So that's kind of a high-level overview of our project collaboration portal. And you can see here is a more detailed view with the different capabilities here. So it's all about maintaining that visibility into your project and the overall progress, but at the same time providing collaboration. And then it reduces the overall effort for project managers to provide that status. This way it can be a push versus a pull scenario. So next I want to jump into annual planning, our focus for our webinar today. First, I'd like to typically start off with the purpose and the goals and objectives. So from an annual planning opportunity perspective, we've seen with many organizations, and probably many of you today, it's the process by which you establish how you want to manage investments to maximize business value and overall returns for the organization. And that can be across both strategic and operational investments as you're looking to grow the business, as well as to maintain and run the business. And so we see that's really established as a process for many organizations and how they go through their annual planning. We see two different processes, if you will, at a high level. First, the strategic project portfolio process. and this is going to be what we're going to focus on for the demonstration today. So typically, we see as a best practice starting off with strategic goals and objectives for the upcoming fiscal year, being able to manage your overall annual planning process, and then being able to have that visibility in terms of dashboards and reporting. What's interesting is there's multiple inputs into your overall strategic project portfolio planning process. So you might get that information from your product portfolio. We're seeing that become more and more of an input, especially as organizations starting to move towards product-centric management versus project-centric. It might be your service portfolio. So from your IT organization and how they're managing services, they're looking at those services, and those are key inputs there. They're looking to enhance their services on an annual basis. It might be from your application portfolio. So you might be using the ServiceNow application portfolio management capabilities, and you're analyzing and rationalizing your applications. That's going to generate some of these strategic projects for the year. And next, you might be managing your technology portfolio, understanding the end of life, end of support, and determining where you need to invest in the coming year. Those will then roll up into various project proposals. We obviously have a set of in-flight projects that are going to be carryover. So those need to be accounted for, or you might be managing various epics from your product-centric organizations or from your development teams. And so the idea is then those are all key inputs by which you can then bring in and create those project demands or those proposals, assess those, prioritize and rank those, as well as categorize them based upon the different portfolios and strategies you have in your organization. And at that point, the key thing is to look at how to start performing some what-if analysis and determining how you can optimize your investments based upon your overall strategic goals, as well as slicing and dicing that based upon different portfolios. And then once you went through that exercise, you would then present an initial plan or a draft plan for the year. That would go through a series of governance board approvals, might require some iterations, and then in the end you have an approved overall operating plan for your strategic projects. So we've seen many organizations go through a similar process. There might be more details, but we see this as a common best practice process for managing your strategic project portfolio. One thing we're seeing more and more is really, as you're doing this overall planning, making sure that it's tied back to the business value. A lot of times that's being focused on digital transformation today. We're also seeing that organizations are making sure that not only do they have the budget, but also do they have the resource capacity. We're actually seeing that change as well as organizations are looking at just managing teams versus understanding individual resource capacity. From an operational portfolio perspective, here's how we see that process working with our customers. I won't really be going into the details today from an operational perspective. We'll be scheduling another session for that, but just wanted to kind of highlight the high-level process. Before I jump into this as well, we do see organizations that actually use projects to establish a combined view of their strategic as well as operational portfolio for annual planning. So that's another way of doing it versus this way here of kind of including finance and IT financial management solutions. So typically from an operational portfolio, typically you have someone in finance who's reviewing and confirming the budgets from the previous year, the actuals from the previous year, as well as looking at CapEx and the capital budgets and actuals. They might be looking at also the various usage from the previous year from an IT perspective. So, you know, how much infrastructure do you have in your organization? How many more servers? How many more transactions did you process? What's the projected transaction volumes going to increase? What's the sizing and storage of things increasing? That would then generate and help do additional forecasting from an overall financial perspective. And so taking those kind of budgets and actuals as inputs, then they typically identify and create forecasts, whether it be applying that to an overall growth forecast or maybe a reduction forecast based upon the business forecast for the upcoming year. And then they would create their overall budgets, do some of their own scenario analysis on those operational budgets, and then go through a similar process of presenting those recommendations, going through the iterative governance approval process, and then establishing their operating plan. So this is typically done more at the IT finance level, and then coordinated with the PMO and the strategic portfolio management. ServiceNow does have their IT financial management solution, which can assist in these activities. It's not the focus for this particular webinar, but will be one of our upcoming webinars. So that's kind of a high-level view from an operational portfolio perspective. Then when you look at bringing those together from an end-to-end annual planning perspective, and what we're seeing here is highlighting if you kind of want to follow the Gartner portfolio of grow, transform, and run, typically managing that strategic portfolio as part of your grow and transform initiatives, and being able to bring in those project proposals, project demands, evaluate those, and then go through that overall what-if scenario and governance and iteration process. Same thing here in the run, kind of reviewing and getting those financial actuals and operational plans and bringing those over and going through that overall process. And then the end result is having an overall annual plan. That could be a combination of your overall grow plan, your transform plan. You might have different departmental plans or other portfolios. You can slice and dice that, as well as then your overall run or operational plan. So this is kind of how we see, in summary, annual planning and how it's pulled together from an organizational perspective. And then obviously organizations have different tools that they use to support the process. But what we're talking about here at a high level could all be supported within ServiceNow. For the demo today, I just wanted to provide a quick overview of what we'll be walking through in the demo today. So this particular slide typically is used as a high-level overview of some of the major components related to IT business management module within ServiceNow. And so there's these various typical inputs that you would have, bringing the information in on a daily basis. What we're going to focus on today is looking at demands, where you're creating those strategic demands so that you can get those vetted and assessed as a part of approval for your annual plan, and then be able to manage that portfolio, whether it be through the portfolio workbench and performing what-if scenario analysis, or whether that be through the usage of the investment portal to slice and dice your overall annual plan while you're looking at your different projects and demands. So that's what we're going to highlight here in the demonstration today. One thing that's also key is focusing and aligning to the strategies of the organization when you are really analyzing your portfolio, making those annual planning decisions, as well as then being able to use the dashboards and the reporting capabilities as well. So that's going to be the focus of our demo today. So first of all, I'm going to highlight logging in here as a business relationship manager. And this is someone that would typically manage demand on a day-to-day basis. You could set up a specific dashboard to manage the demand intake as part of your annual planning process, and be able to slice and dice the information. What I wanted to highlight here is have an overall view of the demands coming in. So it'd been really nice to kind of manage the demands coming in. Have they been qualified? Do I have a draft? Have I actually created an overall business case? Here again, each organization has a different set of requirements and policies for getting everything into their annual plan. So based upon your process, you could be able to manage those states and the progress of demand. If you wanted to start getting a view into your CapEx and OpEx, you could obviously do that. And then here we're highlighting that strategic versus operational demand coming into the organization. So that's one way of looking at it. Another way being able to start slicing and dicing the information. And this is looking at it from a demand perspective. And you can obviously filter this based upon the demands that you are selecting just for the next fiscal year. So this way I can slice it by business application, by business unit, and then be able to kind of look at my overall financial and resource forecasts associated with the demand coming in. So that's one way of looking at managing the demand coming into the organization. And next, and this is kind of highlighting different views that you can look at managing your portfolio. So this could be managing your portfolio on a day-to-day basis, or this could be managing the process for your annual planning. So here I've kind of got an overall view of looking at our overall portfolio and seeing everything come into the demand funnel, as well as I can see all my in-flight projects. That's really critical to see which ones would be carryover. Obviously, the ones that you're delivering and closing probably wouldn't be carryover for the next year. Might want to be looking at the ones that are currently in execution or planning for your next year. We can also then look at things from an overall investment perspective. These are great visualizations that you can use on an ongoing operational perspective, or also filter it here and view it from an annual planning perspective, and I can align it to my different strategies as well as portfolios, and be able to see kind of what the plans are or what the current scenarios are that need to be approved as part of your annual plan. So it's a great way to kind of manage and view what's going on with your overall portfolio. And next, I wanted to highlight some of the out-of-the-box dashboards that are available with the Madrid release. So they released a series of PMO dashboards with the Madrid release. What's nice here going forward with Madrid is it includes performance analytics. So that's a core capability, and gives you this trending information, gives you the ability to do some dynamic modeling here in your dashboards as well. And we'll see how that can play out into your annual planning going forward. So as an example here, if I want to look at this from an overall portfolio perspective, I could then dynamically search and view each portfolio, what our current annual plan is looking like for that portfolio. In this case, if we wanted to have our application modernization portfolio for the upcoming year, I'd quickly be able to see information related to that portfolio. I could come in here and have my portfolio defined here as my FY20 strategic planning portfolio. At this point, this is my starting point, so I don't really have projects in there, but you can see as I continue to grow and add more demands and projects into that portfolio, I'd be able to see kind of where we're at multiple dimensions. So that can be very beneficial for you and your planning process. Also, what's nice too is I could also slice and dice that, say, by business unit, if I wanted to kind of look at the overall budget by business unit. So what I'm going to highlight next is, since I'm logged in here as a business relationship manager managing demand, basically what you can do is you can set up on your self-service portal and allow people in the organization to submit their demands for the annual planning process. So this might be a different view that you're used to seeing if you're using the back end to submit your demands. So this is kind of pulling it from the front end self-service portal. This one was recently tailored for one of a recent demos, so you can kind of see the customer logo there. But I can take those demand forms and I can put those here into the overall service portal. Gives a nice view and experience for members of the organization that are submitting those proposed demands for your annual planning process. So I can enter the name of that, so you can really kind of expose any of the different fields. And what's nice is you can kind of keep it very simple and just focus on the fields that you want to have for that initial input. And then you can then use the input here with your business relationship manager or others to complete the intake process, more of your business case based upon the information that's being submitted here. So that's how easy it is to come in and create that great experience for members of the organization for to submit their demand from that central place on the overall service portal. So then once those demands coming in as a relationship manager, I'll be able to then manage the demand. I'll be able to understand kind of where the demand is in the various stages and be able to kind of understand what information is still missing. I can look at the scoring and seeing whether or not they've updated the scoring for the associated projects, or proposed projects, I should say. So then I can come in here and look at one of these demands, and just want to highlight a few areas here of core information that can be used as part of our what if planning capabilities. So first of all, I just wanted to highlight here that in this case, just by setting up the what if portfolio, which I'll highlight in a minute, it'll auto align it to a specific portfolio. What's key here, though, is to make sure that we set up our different investment classes. This is where organizations typically set up the run, grow, transform. In this case, we're looking at it as a run and change. We're then looking at various investment types. So you can take that class and further define that down into an investment type, whether it be revenue, generating, legal. So we'll highlight how that can help you with understanding your overall budget by slicing and dicing the information according to those different types. Also over here from a business a class perspective, you can see how I can align things to the overall strategy of the organization. So in this particular example, we've aligned it to move to the cloud, and over here is associated with a goal of decreasing CapEx by 10 million for the upcoming year. So those are some key data elements. Obviously up here, I can look at the category from strategic versus operational as well. So it gives me some core information to help understand and slice the information as I'm performing my what if analysis. So next, what I wanted to do is to go over into the portfolio workbench and really highlight how I can come in and set up an overall portfolio for my annual plan. Previously, I went in and created an FY20 portfolio, and it's very easy to go in and create an overall portfolio. So just to kind of highlight that, I can enter in the name of my portfolio, fill out the name here and hit create, and then it takes me through a couple of steps here to set up my overall portfolio. But in the interest of time, we'll come back here and look at our different portfolios. I'll go back here and show you this FY20 portfolio, which I created earlier, but I just started creating that, and we've just added in one particular demand item for this particular portfolio. We did identify an overall target, and at this point we can start selecting the demands and projects. In this particular starting point for my annual plan, I obviously only have this one demand item in here. I can see this particular demand item, and I can see the overall costs, and I can see the associated hours and resource capacity to meet that particular demand. So that's one example. As I added more and more projects to this portfolio, as well as demands, I'd be able to manage that and perform some what-if analysis. So I'm going to go in and look at one that has a large set of demands and projects. You can see here I can indicate the specific fiscal year that I'm doing my overall annual planning, and you can see how it's walking me through the guided steps of setting my target and selecting my demands, and then finalizing my budgeting and my forecast. So what we're going to focus in on is how to select the demands and projects. So once I have set up my portfolio and selected the demands and projects to be included, then I'm able to go in and start performing some what-if analysis. One thing that's key here is to make sure we have the auto refresh set up so that real time is going to update my cost and my resource impacts based upon my what if analysis. So we've got different columns you can add here as you're looking at your overall portfolio. In this case, let's assume we want to start from scratch and determine what we want to select. So in this case, I've deselected all the different demands and projects, and we want to sort this here from a priority perspective. So I could quickly then come in here and understand all the different demands and projects, and I could just go by priority and start entering and selecting those items. That would help me then understand the overall costs associated with those demands and those projects, and that can help me see how I'm fitting within the overall target cost here of the $9.5 million. So I obviously have more projects that I can include, so I can go through here and select additional projects to be added. So that's the process by which I would go through, and by using the different data elements, I can be able to select the appropriate projects. So at that point, I could confirm that overall portfolio. I could actually approve the selected demands, and then I could actually confirm resources. So that's where I could confirm the resources. It's not necessarily a full allocation, but I could earmark those resources to work on those particular projects. So that's how I can go through that overall process. If I want to print out this portfolio and use it in one of your governance meetings and your annual planning, I could print out this information. Also, we recommend just using this dashboard in your annual planning meetings so that you can do that in a more dynamic way with the organization. So next I wanted to go over and highlight the usage of the investment portal. So I've set up a couple different, I would say, investment portals here to help manage my overall annual planning. Here we could go into and look at the IT application modernization, which is similar to the portfolio. And each one of these investment views are user-defined and set up your own container. So you can really select and filter what you'd like to include. So in this particular one here for annual planning, I actually selected all demands and all projects, so I could get an overall view. So you can see here I've got 250 investments, 172 demands, 78 projects in here, and I can see the overall cost, CapEx and OpEx, and view that information here in the system. There's multiple different KPIs that you can set up in your overall investment portal. What's really nice, you can configure and set up other KPIs. So if you have other KPIs that the organization is looking to manage or optimize as part of your planning process, you can add those KPIs in here as well. So it's a great way to have that visibility. So this overview page, and I've set up this overview page, and basically what you can do here is you can select any of those data elements that we showed earlier in the demand form. Those fields are typically always in your project form as well. I can select those as my different columns. So you can come over here and I can select all the different columns here. Even if you have custom fields on your demand or your projects, you can add those in here as well without any coding, and then have those displayed. But what's nice here is this view, I'm looking at the strategies. We think that's important here for annual planning. The investment class, in this case, the change and run, or this could be your grow, a run and transform. Looking at it from a portfolio perspective, a program perspective, and then the actual names of those demands or projects. Here we're kind of seeing the overall status of the in-flight items. We are looking at the priority and bringing in scoring, so you can really help to really kind of dissect and slice and dice the information. So I wanted to highlight that here. You can see here I can drag column headings here to look into different groups. So what I could do is I could look at, let's look at things from an overall portfolio perspective. By doing that, then I'm going to come up with overall costs as well as benefits across the different portfolios. So it's a great way to understand what's the actual cost of each one of those portfolios. I can also then have a way of looking at what are all the different demands and projects within that portfolio, and look at more of the plan dates as well as the prioritization of those items. So it gives me a great way to slice and dice the information. It's a great way to answer questions as you're discussing your annual plan. So it's a great way to kind of dynamically view the information. If I wanted to kind of look at it from an investment class perspective, run, grow, transform, I could obviously do that as well and be able to kind of get that view here as well. So really any of the different columns here, I can get different views. So if I wanted to, I could look at the strategies there. I could pull that information in by strategy if I wanted to then look at the investment class, and there if I wanted to look at it from a portfolio perspective. And so what I can then see here from a strategy, we want to have employee engagement. I can then see here are the different portfolios associated with that. So it gives me a great way of looking at and viewing the information based upon different selections and different grouping. And then by doing that, it automatically gives me my overall planned cost and budget for each one of those groupings. So very powerful solution here with the investment portal. And what's nice is once you set this up, you can then save this layout. So every time you come back in, it's going to have the appropriate fields that you would like to view and manage as part of that annual planning discussion with one of your governance boards. Next, I can look at that overall investment portfolio, if you will, from a timeline perspective, and be able to, in this case, understand from a program perspective or a portfolio perspective what's included. Next, if I wanted to look at more of a deep dive into the financials as a part of that governance meeting, I've got that capability. So just like with what we saw in the overview, I can set up my different columns here, then I can slice and dice the information. So here from a financial perspective, yes, my strategy, my portfolio is important, but I just really want to kind of look at things from a cost perspective. So I can then look at and see labor, CapEx, hardware CapEx, and kind of slice and dice the information and see the overall costs associated with each one of those groupings. So it's a great way to slice and dice the information here from a financial perspective. Here again, we're looking at it, just from an overall budget perspective, but I have my actuals, my variance each into my fiscal year. I could look at it if I wanted to from a quarterly perspective. I could even get more detailed from a monthly perspective as well. So kind of supports that dynamic viewing as you're in that overall planning governance model discussion. You can see here too that I could toggle over while I'm in those meetings into looking at our different investment portfolios that we've set up. I set up another one around grow and transform portfolio. And so I could just toggle over and look at the grow and transform portfolio. And so what I had done when I set this one up is I only went in and I selected the investment class for change, which is related to my grow and transform. And so I'm getting this similar type of a view, looking at my strategies, my portfolios and programs, the associated priorities and scores. Obviously, I could come over here if I wanted to and look at from a priority perspective. And that way I could look at our priority ones as a $16 million overall plan cost. So you can see here with any data element, you can slice and dice and understand what the cost would be for that portion of your overall proposed portfolio. So very powerful to be able to do that and to give that visibility. I can also then do the same thing here with this particular grow and transform portfolio, look at the overall timeline, as well as then look at the detailed financials associated with just my grow and transform. portfolio. So a great way to manage that overall portfolio. And then lastly, I wanted to come out here and just kind of reiterate the power here of the new dashboards and performance analytics with Madrid. And not only can I use the investment portal to view things, I could come in here and look at those individual portfolios and use that for visibility out to the different stakeholders, and look at that in-flight, FY20 portfolio that I've just started, or come in and look at, say, that IT applications modernization portfolio and view the overall planned costs and benefits, as well as being able to slice and dice that information for that particular portfolio. So that's kind of a bird's eye view of what I wanted to accomplish in the annual planning demo today. So just wanted to highlight a couple of things before we open up for a question and answer. So we do help many organizations that are looking for a way to assess how they're using ServiceNow PPM today or other components of the ITSM or ITBM solutions. So we do have our health checks and then provide you with an implementation roadmap. We do have our Rapid Start implementation packages for those of you that haven't implemented the full suite or are just looking at starting the implementation process for implementing portions of the ServiceNow platform. In this case, we're looking at PPM. We do have other Rapid Start implementation packages for the other components. We do see multiple starting points for annual planning. So we could have just a one-on-one discovery session with you and members of your team. We also do help organizations with their process, assessing their process and helping to define that to-be process. We talked in the beginning about some of those high-level processes and approach for annual planning. If you're looking for and have a need for assessing where you are today with PPM, looking for some best practice recommendations and roadmap, we can assist there. We can assist you with your Rapid Start implementation. It's not too late to do a quick implementation to start getting your demand in for your annual planning for FY20. And then if you're looking just to free up your team to focus on more project initiatives and would like to have assistance with managed services and training, we can assist you with those needs as well. Feel free to reach out to any of us here if you have questions, if you'd like to schedule any one of these next steps. If you'd like to have a one-on-one discovery session or one-on-one demo, or like to inquire about how we can assist in any one of these activities, or even interest in one of our solutions. So thanks again for participating today. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.